if anybody was looking to change 4.6 liter spark plugs, I mean, I'm sure that this side looks fairly straightforward, but this side, I'll just show you what you're going to get into if you have one of these and you're looking in to do it yourself. You know, you take this air pipe off, and then this, like, I don't know how old it is. This is a good time to clean your throttle plate, you know. So take this off anyways, and I'll show you everything I got to disconnect to get back there. I'm going to start with like the wiring. Make sure I get all the wires and the vacuum pipes off. These you just turn, you push the green up and just pop them out. These, I'll show you after I take them out, but you push the red clips, you make sure they come out, and then you just squeeze and pull out. But the coils are under, and it's a lot easier taking this off. And like I say, you get the added bonus cleaning your throttle plate, because a lot of times that'll cause a rough or an uneven idle. And if you're really, you know, looking at EGR valve, some of these you could clean. It'll, you know, improve its performance a little. But if it's not closing the whole way, you're getting exhaust gas at idle when this thing doesn't want them, you're going to have a real bad idle. I'm not going to get that far into that in today, but this I'm going to at least do for it. Put the plugs in that have been in that car, I'd say at least for one summer. They're auto lights, not my favorite plug, but that's what she has. Also, I guess take a little chance to review this. I had a couple of the Chinese spark plug sets. It always seems like they're missing one or two. And the last magnetic ones I had, I did like them, but they didn't work on all spark plugs. The magnetic ring didn't clear some of the thicker ones. So I picked up this Quinn set at Harbor Freight. It's like our, I don't know, I guess our master spark plug set. But it has a lot of things I already have, you know, several of. But I mean, get some different ones. And what I did like is this has the locking extension. So if these will actually lock on your spark plug so you don't get it stuck down the cylinder head or anything. And there's a couple specialty ones that have the swivels already built onto them. Looks like a nice little set, and the quality seems all right. Swivels are pretty tight, but that's good. And price is right. Sometimes if you're a member of that Inside Track Club, you could get some decent deals, but never had a chance to use it yet. So it's kind of kill two birds with one stone. All right, guys, I'll be back. Any tool that you have to take off these little red retainers, I mean, you want to use a screwdriver or a pick to take them off if they're stuck on. So these trim tools, hose pliers, or, you know, finger strength, needle nose pliers, whatever you have. You do get more pinching action out of these than compared to like a needle nose. But you just pop that red piece out, and then you squeeze right in the middle and just pull it back. And if it's stuck, that's where I take these while it's still connected and push down right there. It gives you a little bit more leverage just to pull the thing out without breaking it. The hose clamp pliers, they do work great too, but they have a narrower, so you got to watch not to squeeze too hard, because it has a narrower contact point, so it could go through the plastic more as opposed to these trim tools. They're a little bit broader, so you could get a little bit more real estate. And let me readjust a little bit. Not that. Next, I'm going for the rigid debreather pipe coming across. What you want to do on these is pull this green tab backwards and then push up. Backwards, then up, and then just twist. So without it in there, it's backwards, then up. You can take it off the other side, especially if you're going to change your coil. You might want to just take the pipe off the whole way, but we'll just push it out of the way for now. Then we have the same kind of clamp with the red connector in the back. Then you just push down on it and pull out. Sometimes if your vehicle's been serviced a few times, these red clips are missing, but you'll still should hear a positive click. If you do, don't worry about replacing the terminal if you don't want to, but if you don't hear a positive click, the sensor's going to just keep wiggling free. The connector's going to keep wiggling free. So if you still hear a positive click and you have to press down to release, you know, that's up to you if you want to replace it. But if it doesn't make a positive click home, you know, I'd replace this, or at least put some kind of zip tie around it temporarily until you can take care of it. And you just keep working around. Looks like what I'm going to do next is remove these two hose clamps and then pull the air tube off. There might be a tube in the back. You always want to look and feel around underneath real good and make sure there's not one of these rigid plastic tubes that if you pull off you're going to just break, because you don't want to break them. It could cause, you know, vacuum leaks, and you're going to be getting all unmetered air into your engine, and that's not good. Okay, these are 8mm here and there, and I'm just using a little impact driver. You could use whatever you want, even a flat screwdriver. 8mm if you're using a socket. And we're going to work them off. So it's easier disconnecting the air cleaner, the top of it, the spring retainers, and pulling it out that way. That way you don't risk putting a crack in this hose, because if you crack this hose, this is your MAF sensor, and it meters all the air going into your engine. So if you put a crack in the bottom of this hose, you're going to suck up air that this thing didn't count. And then your computer's going to have a hard time controlling it. They call it pirate air, unexpected air, you know, any kind of air that's in there that this thing didn't count. Oh. Do not discard this a lifetime air filter. Sure looks like a Fram, but all right. All right, guys. For simplicity, I'm going to just do one. These are all the same going down here. It's the same procedure. It looks like they're not going to come out because of the fuel rail, but they're in. Look how loose a couple of these coils are. I mean, they're in there. It'd be questionable whether they're making good contact with the boot, but I believe these would have had the red clips in them, just like the MAF sensor had. If it does, slide them out the same way, then squeeze the end and pull back, and then they'll come off. And if you want to, you could take them all off at the same time. I mean, they'll stay at the harness in order. But if you're still not sure, just take, do one coil at a time, one coil, one plug, unplug it, plug it back in, go. But I'll take this one out and I'll show you how they slide out from there. It's hard to get I used to have a 7mm ratchet wrench. It made it easy, but any 7mm, it's hard to get a socket on there unless you got a very shallow well. But just whatever, any 7mm wrench, this one seems, it's a Harbor Freight offset. you know, but anything with a 7mm to get them started. Okay, and then with the screw removed from it, what you want to do is just twist it. And see how this would be where it was. And as you twist it out this way, it clears the fuel rail. And as you pull it out, just keep twisting it as it comes out. And you see the way it goes in there. And that's why they look deceiving. They look like it, if they come straight up like they do on some 4-cylinders, it would hit this fuel rail. But if you see the way the boot is, you see why it doesn't, because as it goes in, then it'll straighten out. But and see, sometimes if you don't get these in there right, if you could feel around it, you'll sometimes feel the boot going onto the plug, and then you push down as you turn. Because if you get them in there wrong, I mean, it feels like there's no resistance, and sometimes I think it just pushes in the side, and then the spark arcs a little bit, and you don't. You want to make contact with that spring. What I'll show you as I go back in, and whenever I take a spark plug out, I'll move the light so we got a little more view in that area. Yeah, except for this engine, I'm just using this as a spark plug socket with a swivel attached to it and a locking extension. When you pull this down and put the socket on, it can't stick down into the head. So whenever you pull back on the extension, the plug's always going to come with it, or the socket's always going to come with it. And yeah, I've done this with all different kinds of spark plugs, but like I said, got a good deal on this, so I just wanted to take some time and see what I like and what I don't like about it. But this one fits in there perfect, and always use like a hand ratchet, especially on Fords. I mean, you want to take these out by hand and install them by hand, because the last thing you want is a stripped head. Then you're, you know, in for a world of hurt. And if they don't want to move, don't force them. And see, that's the benefit of the locking extension and swivel. Whenever you put it down the spark plug hole, and then it gets you up here to deal with it. And I always like using a short-handled ratchet to break them free, because the longer the handle, the more force you're putting on it. And so you want to actually be able to feel how tight these are. Like, see, I can't move it with one hand on here. If I had a bigger handle and I was pushing harder, I might have instantly snapped the plug. So what you want to do is just get a feel for them. With this hand, I'm not holding the camera, I'm not doing very good. I almost have to use two hands or use a bigger ratchet and just feel very, very carefully. But let me see if I can actually set this back up here. If it would stay still, might be in lock. So what you're just doing is using one hand for leverage and holding it, but you're still, that's all it took. But you're just holding one for leverage, but you still don't have a handle out to here where you're going to be doing some damage. And then if you want, I give them a couple turns, you could spin. You can, I mean, I use this to install them, and sometimes it just takes you a lot less time to take them out if you're just using a finger ratchet like that. You could grab it down here. I mean, it's whatever works for you. And even at that point, you could spin them out with power, but I'd never use even a small impact or a small electric ratchet. Never air. Coming out, you could go real slow, but you don't want to do the actual breaking loose of the threads. And see this on some, if you just use a regular spark plug socket and an extension, whenever you go to pull the extension out, this part will stay in the head. Then you have a hard time getting it out. So this kit makes it pretty nice. I mean, the plugs don't look too old, but they look pretty wet. Oh boy. First impressions of the spark plug side, even though I like the locking extension and the swivel already attached to the socket, just taking out one spark plug, the rubber insert came off with the plug. And every time, I used to have Snap-on and Mac ones years ago, but they never came out. I mean, not this much, not one plug. These go in there and they're supposed to be, you know, some kind of press fit. Why they can't put a little bit of glue in them or something just to hold your plug so you could dangle this upside down. It's, you know, it wasn't too hard to get off, but I mean, you're already tearing at a boot, you know, of something you just got. So that part I definitely don't like. I was hoping that was a little bit better, but just seems like everything from Harbor Freight, no matter what brand it is, you're making some kind of compromise, even if they do appear quality. The Icon brand, I mean, I've been having a lot of success with that stuff, but it's the same level, same quality as Craftsman, and about the same price too. So these are the Quinn, the Pittsburgh Pro. I mean, they're all cheaper. So you get what you pay for, I guess, but at least you have some attachments. Well, guys, I feel like an idiot for a second there. After I just came on and bitched about this Quinn spark plug removal socket, I remembered how loose that coil was on the video, just shaking around, shaking around, shaking around. Whenever I took it off, there is a rubber way down in there. They seem to grab it by the tip. Then I went and I got another swivel out of the kit. So apparently, the last one, he put the spark plug in there. I hope that was his last spark plug, because he left the rubber part on there. And that's why I was so disappointed, because I've had Chinese ones that did this. And once you get that down in there, and this is tightened, your only choice is to remove it again. You can't get this piece of rubber off of the spark plug, so it's not as simple as taking this off every time, putting it back in there, using it, taking it off, putting it back in there. You have to take this off of the old one and put the new one in, and then this will stick on the new one when you go to pull yours. So I was really bummed out, but I mean, you know, no, because I like the quality and the feel of this and all the attachments I got, but I was blaming it for somebody else's mistake. That's something. Okay, guys, the plug gap was 54 thousandths, and they recommend not using any anti-seize or anything on it, so we'll go with that recommendation and try not to force them. If you drop one of these spark plugs, just get another one. You know, don't take the chance. Don't re-gap it and put it back in there. Oh, there's carbon tracks all over that other one, where, I mean, I've never seen nothing like that. Usually I'd notice that I've lost my ability to hold a spark plug in my socket before I left the rubber in an engine and tried to bolt the coil on, but we've seen how loose that was. That was the problem right there. And the brown marks on the outside of that spark plug, that indicates the plug wasn't even making it across the gap. You know, it was firing just blindly through the plug into the cylinder wall. But it also has a PO, or a code for the same code for a number 8 cylinder. I mean, maybe the guy went out and got another spark plug, and I'll find a boot in there too. But It'll be interesting to see, being that one we know that it was never used in the gap. That plug looked almost brand new, but it was wet, possibly from the misfire. But I'd like to see if, the other ones, there's any more evidence that the gap was actually working and, they're a little bit more worn down from using that path. All right, but these are all, if I find anything else interesting, I'll be back, but these are going to be your hardest ones. And if you follow these steps, you'll be able to change your plugs pretty easy. But I know just looking at it, that if you think them coils got to come straight up. And that's always what I'm just trying to do. If you're going to do this yourself, maybe I'll come back and just show you how cleaning the throttle plate, something like that. But just if you're thinking about doing this job yourself, it's not too hard. And I just like you take a look at what you're getting into before you get into it. Watch as many videos as you can, ask questions if you have to, but you're better off, asking for help or, watching a couple more before you attempt something than making a mistake like that. You gotta remember the basics. I'll show you what I mean, how they go in, but I put a little bit of dielectric grease in the end. And then whenever you go to slide them in, just kind of aim the boot the direction you tighten the plug in. And then as soon as it goes under that fuel roll, you see it, you could just twist it like that, and then just push down, and then see you could feel the boot stick, and then it's on the spark plug. I felt something was loose with that one to begin with. I thought maybe you didn't have it tightened down enough, or if you don't get that on the boot, like you should feel a suction, almost like a dart releasing from one of them suction cup darts. And you'd probably actually hear it if I didn't put the dielectric grease in there, but then you're in there if you feel that, positive. It just doesn't want to pick up. You could tell it's, gripping the tip of that plug. But that means a world of difference, making good contact with the spark plug. I mean, I've seen a couple that were misfiring that the people tried to force it instead of just taking the obvious. I mean, if which they come out and they know you're just twisting it, that's how easy it is to get these coils out. And then whenever you go to put it back in, it's the same thing. You put it under there, you twist it a little bit, and you push down. You should feel that little suction creating. And if it doesn't, just take it back apart and see what's holding you up. Okay, I figured I'd pop back in just because if you're going to have that intake hose off, the benefits of cleaning your throttle body are, it outweighs just not doing it. You see the black around the bottom and the butterfly? If you're getting a hesitation, maybe one of the reasons why you're changing your spark plugs also, and you have to take that hose off, you're right here. And they do make throttle body cleaner. I'm just using non-chlorinated brake clean, the flammable kind. At the worst, you're going to give yourself a code when you first fire it up, and it's not going to run right for a second, but it is burning. If you use the chlorinated, the non-flammable, it's just going to take you longer to start it, and you're going to get a code or two. So at the worst, whenever you first start it up, if it sounds rough, don't worry about it. Yeah, that's just the brake clean burning through, because you are going to get some back in here, even though we're not going to use enough, a lot. We're throwing off its fuel ratio enough that you might have to disconnect your battery if you have no other way of clearing the code. But what I do is I take a piece of wood or anything, because I'm doing it with one hand, but you could use anything, rubber, the screwdriver, a broom, anything wood. You just don't want to get in there with metal, and you don't want to get in there with your fingers, because some of these actuators will actually snap shut and really hurt your fingers. So just take something thick enough that it's not going to break off in there, and you slide it under the butterfly and you just turn up. Then you can leave go of it, and the butterfly's open. You want to clean that carbon. If I could set up a tripod or find a way to hold the camera there, I'll show you how to clean it out, and about how much brake cleaner, throttle body cleaner you want to use. Even the throttle body cleaner, it's not just a brake cleaner that has a chance of giving you a code when you fire it up. Even the throttle body cleaner made for this could give you a code, because you're throwing the fuel out of whack just for a minute. All right, let me get out a shot setting it up and I'll be back. All right, I seem to have the camera balanced in here over by the coolant tank, but this is just regular old, this is Walmart, the flammable brake parts cleaner. That'd be the non-chlorine, and I know it doesn't make sense when you think about it. You'd think that the chlorine was the more dangerous, because just like 2 little puffs like that, and you'll see, and just get in there with a toothbrush, a soft brush. You don't want to blast. This stuff dries very quickly, but you want to get in there enough on both sides and just go in there a little bit past, or you could see there's it's raised right here where the throttle goes, just like a toothbrush width. And sometimes you could just take, you don't want to get it all in there, just spray and spray away. You could even take the toothbrush, spray the toothbrush, and then just get in there. And always use, if you get your own shop supplies, you know, it's the red rags that I'll use for something like this, because all I'm getting on it's brake clean. You're going to end up using that rag again to wipe something up, I guarantee it. Runaway oil spill or coolant leak or something. Your hands, undercoating, you grease. But I don't like using them because the fibers come off of them to clean the inside. I just use your regular old blue shop towels. Those you're not going to use again, even if you use them for this, what I'm using a red rag for. And you can see how dirty it is in there, and that'd still go a little bit more, get it all soupy. If you want to get the edge right where the shim is, you just move it to the top. But again, be, you know, very careful with your finger. And by now you know if you have the type that wants to spring back. In that case, I'd either unplug it or disconnect the battery, because you don't want to put the strain on the motor. Or something like this is just a wooden dust broom. You could use it to hold one down while you move the other. Just nothing that'll break off or leave residue or could get stuck in there. I'm trying to get some best light I can at that angle. These are the kind of shop towels, just the blue. These don't leave nothing behind. The red rags, if you did use them in there, they leave behind like lint and sometimes like red string. These are pretty, you know, residue free. All I do is just fold it up in a little square like that and spray the actual cloth with the brake clean. And if you're using that as a stick to hold it, you might just want to try something different, like saying with a rubber handled screwdriver. That gives you really good access to the bottom. You want to get all that out of there. It's easy to think like brake clean, whenever you spray brake parts, you just saturate it. I mean, you can't put too much on brake parts, but when you're putting it into the fuel system, you know, you don't want to let it look at, that's how much dirt was just on the bottom half. So if you're doing in a very close tolerance, that's enough to really upset what a computer's expecting to see. I'll do the same thing, only place this on the bottom. Let's see if we get the same. Yep. And you're not going too far back. You're only going as far back as you sprayed, which is because you don't want the rag to get ripped off in there, or the towel, you know, whatever you use. Now, I wouldn't use anything that does disintegrate easy, like a paper towel. You don't want that inside your intake, or, you know, wrapped around the inside of the hinge. You keep folding it back till you get clean areas on the stick, and or anything foam I wouldn't use in here. And I'm still getting it out there. Then that was like 2 of the shop towels folded up together. Then I'll just take one. I'm just gonna go for just the last clean up. Again, just sprayed some on the towel itself. And I'll repeat that on the bottom. This oftentimes causes a hesitation. It's whenever you hit the throttle, there's not a quick response. I'm not sure what the interval of checking it or even cleaning it is, but my rule of thumb is I take a look at it every time you can, every time you get a chance to look in there. You know, if you see any carbon buildup, you know, try to make it nice and clean like that. That'll give you a little more zip. I still see a little bit on the inside where you can't see. I'm gonna do it one more time, but that's the gist of it. Whenever, if you try it, you know, let me know what you think. If it improved it, there's a lot of videos out there on how to clean the throttle body. It's not very hard, but if you were here for the plugs, and you know, I'd go ahead and do that at the same time. All right, all put back together. I'm going to just change the oil in it now. I mean, these kind of engines that had everything wrong as bad as this one is, if you're doing this for a living, you know, I wouldn't blame you at all if you refused to work on something that had that many problems. But this thing started, I mean, I think there was like 18 codes on it, and it's down to none now. Just what, going around fixing with somebody else, and not even really fixing it. I was just trying to assess if it, you know, get the motor running for her. She's only looking for 6 months, but you know, I figure everything that will help somebody. Like, you know, if you were looking on how to get them plugs in on this side, I'm sure that's the side you would have been looking for. This one looks, you know, if you look at it, this one doesn't look intimidating. The only note I'd have on that is the spark plugs are directly underneath that fuel rail. And even with this Quinn kit, the most handiest tools that I used were these two that I already had. It was a PT 5/8 socket that's just like an inch shorter than the one that came with the Quinn kit. On this particular 4.6, I mean, I'm sure if I would have played around long enough, but I tried, everything in order, and this just seemed to be the best for this side. But I'm sure you could do it with a couple different options. What you got, swivels, you know. I just think, you know, with a kit like that big, you finally think maybe you found the master spark plug set, but nope, the quest continues. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one. Adios. These back three are the ones I was referring to. It will take them out. I mean, they do come out, but your chance of cross-threading it with anything other than, you know, something else that's not in that kit. Their straight socket comes up higher than that, so you can't even get a regular swivel on it. And the swivel socket hits the fuel rail on these three. So it's a, you know, it is what it is.